Water on me like a ship. Take your whip and make it flip. New whip and cost a grip. So much ice that I may slip. Song is fire, never skip. Louis belt up on my hip. Cash on me, it's a grip. Talk too much and get zipped.
Hey, what's up guys? Back again with another video in the Java I/O series. This time I'm going to teach you how to work with file streams so we can get input from files and write output to files. So this will allow us to manipulate files in different ways, so it's pretty powerful if you can consider all the things you can do with that. So we're going to start off with reading files, so how to get input from files. Let me delete these two files here real quick because I was using these for testing earlier. Let's delete this one also. So yeah, we're going to get input from files by using a input stream, of course. So let's put something here. So file streams, and then first we're going to do file input streams, okay? So as you know, we've gone over the input streams and the output stream classes, which are going to be the top level classes for your input and output streams. So starting off with the input stream, under that is a class called FileInputStream, and this is going to be the class that allows us to establish a file input stream or an input stream with a file, right? So to make a new input stream with a file, all we got to do is do new or file input stream, give it a name. You can call it input or whatever you want to call it, and then new input stream in our file input stream. Okay, so we're making a new type of file input stream, and if we do Control P to see the parameters, it's asking for three things, or you can choose one of those three things, of course. So first you have the string name, which is going to be the name of the file or its location, and then you have a file object, and then you have a file descriptor object. And so the easiest one is going to be the first one, just to provide a name or a path to the file. So let's say we want to provide a name to a file like thing.txt. That's our file, right? So we need to actually create the file, or there's going to be an exception thrown. So this would be located, since we're not providing a path, this is going to be the default path, I guess you could call it. This is going to be located by default within the root of the project. So we can create the new file here, thing.txt. And if we don't put it in the root of the project, since we didn't provide any other location data for this, it doesn't know where else to look. So if we move this somewhere else, it's not going to work, basically, okay? So just for testing purposes, let's put something random here, like Cody is really cool, okay? And our goal is to be, going to be try reading this from here and put it into the console, okay? So to read from a file. So we have a little problem here. It says unhandled exception java.io.file not found exception. And this is a type of IO exception, which is obviously thrown whenever you can't find the file. So if this ever happens, it's going to throw that. So we can just cut this and, oops, not that. Cut the whole thing here, the whole line, and then put it within a try statement. And then we're going to catch that. And instead of doing file not found exception itself, let's just do IO exception, because that encapsulates all of the different exceptions. So if any of them ever occur, then it's going to handle them. We don't have to make a new catch statement for every single exception. So we'll just system.out.println x, in case the exception happens, we'll print it out. And yeah, we can open this up a little bit, and let's try running and see what happens. Nothing should happen exactly. The stream should be established if it's able to find the file, but it's not going to print anything, I don't think. So let's try running this, and yeah, nothing happens. But since no errors were thrown into the console when we ran the program, we can go ahead and assume that this file input stream was established. So since we have established a file input stream, we can go ahead and gather input from it, so just by doing input dot and then read, right? That's going to read 1 byte of input from the input stream. So let's put this into a variable. We're going to put this into an integer variable called data, and we're going to say input dot read. So it's going to read So it's going to read the first byte of input from the stream, which should be the K. So whatever K is on the ASCII table, that's what it should put into the console whenever we print this out. That's what this should be right here, okay? So now let's try outputting this. So we'll do system.out.write, and then we're going to out data, just like that. And let's go ahead and flush it too. .flush, just like that. So that should do that for us. So let's try running this and see what happens. It should be simple enough. All we're doing is reading 1 byte. And as you can see, if we go down here to the console, we can see that it has the letter K, which means that it worked perfect. So that's awesome. We're able to read 1 byte of input from the text file here, and then take that byte of input and then put it into another stream, the system.out print stream. Okay, so that's pretty cool. We're able to transfer data now. That's very powerful. So right now we're only reading 1 byte of input. So let's try reading the entire file, all of the bytes from there. Okay, so we'll just delete this for now. Oh, actually, we can keep the flush one, but we'll just put a for loop here, and this for loop is going to be int n is equal to input dot read, and then we're going to do n is not equal to -1, and then after that we're going to do input n is equal to input dot read again, and I'll explain how this works in a second. Do not worry. And then inside of that, we want to do system.out.write and then plug in just like that, okay? And so what this is going to do basically is it's going to establish or initialize a temporary variable within this for loop here called in. It's going to be equal to the first byte of input, input.read. So it should be equal to the ASCII code of k, basically. And then it's going to go to this part here and say as long as the first byte that I just stored in this variable here is not equal to 1, then we can continue with the looping process. And then after it's done looping, it's just going to go here and read it again, and then it's going to go back here. And as long as this is not 1, it's going to loop again, then go back here. So it's a process. It's just going to loop and loop and loop and loop and loop and loop and loop as long as it's not equal to 1. And if you remember from last episode, I believe, or the episode before that, -1 is basically just meaning the end of the stream, okay? So whenever you're reading an input stream, of course, as -1, that means it's the end of the file, or the end of the stream, really, because there are different types of input streams. So yeah, that's good to practice. And anyway, so let's try running this and see what happens. So it should print out each byte to the console. And awesome, it works perfectly. It says Cody is really cool, because I am really cool, but it also says it in the file here. So just to recap, what it did is it started reading bytes from this input stream that we have here with this file, and then eventually got to the end of the file, meaning there's no more data left to read, so it said -1. So from there, since it reached -1, it's going to stop the loop, and then it's going to flush everything that we just stored within the write method into the console by using flush, right? And that's how you use a for loop to loop through an entire input stream, okay? So let me show you another way, actually. There's many different ways. Of course, you can do everything in code. There's a bunch of different things, right? But let's show you another way to loop through the entire file if we have to. So we're just going to make a initialized value of int data is equal to input.read. So we're reading 1 byte of input again, and then now we're going to make a while loop here. So while data is not equal to 1, we all know what that means because I said it a million times by now. Then if it's not equal to 1, then what we want to do is do system.out.write data. And then when it's at the end of the loop, we just want to do it again by doing data is equal to input.read. And then it's going to go back up here and see if that input that it just read is equal to -1. And if it's not, it's just going to do it again. And then eventually it's going to reach -1 because it gets to the end of the file, and then it's going to flush everything, and then we can see it in the console, okay? So we can run this here and see how it works. It's going to work the exact same as before. So that's really good. But the whole point of showing you both the while loop and the for loop is just that there's multiple ways to do things, and if you prefer one way over another way, then go for it. It's all your choice. It's all preference, all right? So let's try getting a little more advanced here. Let's grab maybe, instead of a single byte of input, like one at a time, let's try grabbing like entire byte arrays of input, okay? So if you remember from the other video, in the input stream video, we were able to do input, or just the name of the stream, dot, and then we could do read, and then we could put the value of this entire stream into a byte array. So let's try doing that for this also. So we're going to do byte array, we're going to make a new byte array, and we're going to call this byte array data as well, because that's a fitting name. And let's get rid of this real quick. So byte array data is equal to, and then we want to get the length of how many like bytes we want to store. So let's just get the entire length of the input that we're going to grab from the file, and we can do that with the available method that we learned. So we can do new byte, and then inside of here we could do input dot available. Okay, so ahead of time we're able to determine how many bytes we're going to be storing. So then we could simply do input dot read and then just plug in data, and now it's going to take everything from here, all the bytes from here, and then plug it into here. Of course, not as letters but as bytes, right? And so just for testing purposes, we obviously want to see if this works or not, so we want to print out the result of this operation here. So we're going to do int I is equal to 0, I is less than data dot length, and then I plus plus, and then system dot out dot write data I for index. So it's just going to loop through every single variable inside of this byte array here, and then print them out, and then after that it's going to flush it so we can see if it works or not. Okay, so there we go. So now it says Cody's really cool, so as you can see it works just the same as it did before. So something really cool is that there's actually another method we could use to do the same thing pretty much. So if you want to just delete this real quick, go up to here. Alright, so let's say we want to grab all of the input from our input stream, our file input stream. There's another way we could do it. We just do input.read all bytes. And as you can see here, if we go to this method, it says that it returns a byte array. So all we gotta do is call read all bytes, and then it's gonna, read all the bytes for us, and then put it into this data byte array, and then we can print it out just as we did before. So let's try that out, and it does the exact same thing. So again, there's many things we can do, but it all does the same thing pretty much. It just depends on how you want to do it, right? So yeah, that's pretty much the basics of how to read input from a file input stream. I showed you how to read, like single bytes of input, and then you know how to read multiple bytes of input by en masse by reading into a byte array. But one thing I want to show you here is how to also use different locations for your files and the other different parameters that we could do. So let's try moving this file that we have here in the root project directory into another folder. So we're going to do new package. Actually, we'll do it into here. So new package. A package is basically a folder if you don't know. And enter a new package name. So we're just going to say files. Okay. And we're just going to drag and drop this one into here. Click OK. So now it's inside of here. So if we run this now to test it out, it should throw a file not found exception because, yeah, as you can see here, it says the system cannot find the file specified because we moved it, so it's no longer in this location here. So now we need to specify the path to the file as well as the file name. So we can simply do, let's just follow this. So we're going to go from here, the project root, then we want to go into the source folder. So src dash and then the me.codysimpson. So me/codysimpson/files and then /thing.txt. So if we do that correctly, it should work. So let's try that out. And yeah, boom, it says Cody's really cool, and it didn't throw a file not found exception this time because we were able to successfully specify the file path. Okay, so let's copy this, or cut this path rather, and let's do Control P. As you can see here, we can also specify 2 other objects, but let me show you how to use a file object. So all you're gonna do is do new file if you want to do it inside of here. And if we do Control P, as you can see here, it's also asking for the path name and all that, so we can just paste it in there just like that, and it's going to do the same exact thing. So yeah, just another way of doing something else, alright? So yeah, those are the different ways to specify the file for your input stream, for your file input stream, just by providing the path name for the file, okay? So remember, when we're done using our input stream or our output stream, we also want to close the output stream because we just want to free up the system from using the resources when we shouldn't be using them, right? Since we're done, might as well close it, right? So we want to add a finally block of code here, and inside of the finally block, we want to do input.close, right? But we can't access that yet because it's still within the scope of this here. So we just take this, copy that, go here, input is equal to null to give it like some sort of initialization. And then there we can do that. And then now down here we can call upon this method, except that it's unhandled. So we just need to cut this. So do try, and then paste that in there, and then catch that exception, and then output it just like that. I just want to clear this up a little bit too by doing if input is not equal to null, because there's no point in closing it if it's not even open in the first place. So we're just going to add that there. So yeah, it should close everything for us. So let's try running this. And boom, yeah, it says Cody's really cool, but it also closed it behind the scenes. So we can just assume that it works correctly. So yeah, that's how you establish a file input stream. So let's move on to file output streams so that we can output or write data to files, right? So that's pretty powerful. We can change the data within a file. Kind of cool. Hopefully you're excited. Anyway, so let's stop rambling and actually try it out. So we'll do file output stream, and then we're going to give it a name of output, I guess you could call it, is equal to null, and then we're just going to open up a try here. It's pretty much the same exact thing except that it's an output stream. Anyway, so now we want to do output is equal to new output stream or file output stream, and then now we just provide the path for the file that we want to establish a stream with. And we're just going to make a new file here for testing purposes, and we're going to call it poop.txt. Okay, so we just made a new file called poop.txt, and we're going to let's actually just move it to the root so we don't have to specify the path, and we'll just do poop.txt just like that. Okay, so we just need to handle the exception, as you can see, so we're going to do that now. So file not found exception ex, and then just output the result of that exception if it ever happens. And then finally, output is not equal to null. Wrong thing. Output is not equal to null. Then what we want to do is do output.close, just like we did with the file input stream a second ago, and then catch the exception. Okay. Hopefully this repetition is helping you out, because the more you type something in programming especially, the more you're going to remember it, and you don't have to like go over this over and over and over again just to remember it. So by typing, you can build muscle memory basically. So yeah, from here we've established a file output stream. If we run this, we shouldn't have any errors. And boom, nothing happens. Good. So we can assume it worked. So let's try gathering input from the console. Let's try getting something from the console and then writing it into this file here. Okay. So let's just make a little loop here that's going to gather some input from the console, the input stream basically, the default input stream. So input is equal to system.in.read. So as you know, this is just going to read the input stream for the console and read 1 byte of input. So we can go to here and now do if input is equal to 10, meaning that if it ever sees an enter, which 10 represents the enter key with an ASCII, right? That's the code for it. So if it ever sees that into the console, that means that we're done basically entering our input, and so we can break. Okay, so we're gonna break and we're gonna get out of the loop. That's what that's gonna do. And then else, if it's not 10, that means that they're still, you know, inputting stuff into the console, and so we could do out.write. So whatever they output or enter into the input, we're just gonna output it into this output stream that we just established for the file output stream, right? So we're gonna take whatever is inputted from the input stream for the console and then put it into the output stream. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So we just need to put inside of here input, right? There we go, that makes sense. So let's try that out now. Or we have a problem, we need to handle this IO exception here. Oh yeah, as you can see here, I put file not found exception, but we need to do IO exception so it handles everything that could possibly occur. Also, one thing I want to also system.out.flush. There we go, we want to flush it. Don't forget that. So let's rerun this and start it up and see what happens. So you can see, as you can see down here, it's asking for input, so I can type whatever I want. Cody Simpson is really cool, right? And then I press enter, and now it's going to read everything, put it into this file here. Cody Simpson is really cool. And yeah, so let's try it again just to make sure everything works. So let's run it again, and now we can type something in. We could say this program is really awesome. I'm not very creative, but there we go. Now it says this program is really awesome. So it knows to stop reading input whenever you press enter, right? That means we're done. So then it breaks out of the loop and then it flushes everything. Pretty cool, pretty simple. And yeah, as you can see here, it overrid the file that we did the first time, because we just ran this program twice. We entered 2 lines of input and it overrid the first one, right? So there's actually a way you can make it not do that. If you go up here, you can specify whether you want to do an append. So you can append it, meaning that it's just going to add to the file rather than overriding it. So if we do true now, we can add multiple lines of input. So if we run this now and test it out, we can see that no matter how many times you run it, it's just going to keep adding stuff to the file output stream rather than overriding the file every single time. So we could say this is the first time. Okay, I can't type correctly, but you get the point. So now we can go in here and it says this program is really awesome, and then this is the first time. Okay, so it works awesome. So that's how it works. It's just appending rather than overriding. Okay, so yeah, they're both very much the same, you know, file input stream and file output stream, except that one gathers input and then one pushes output to a file. Okay, so yeah, we pretty much covered everything. Those are all the main methods. As you can see, if we do output, we can see that those are pretty much all the methods that come with the output stream for files. So nothing special. Okay, so let's think what else. Let's try doing something a little more advanced. Let's try doing this. So let's delete everything, just start from fresh to build that muscle memory. So what I want to do basically is make a little program that can take input from one file and then output it into an output stream of another file. So it's just basically a copier. It's a copy machine, I guess you could call it. So file input stream, we're going to call this fin for file input is equal to null. And then file output stream fout is equal to null. And then let's open this up and initialize those 2 values. So new file input stream. And where do we want to take input from? That's the question. Okay, let's just make 2 new files. So file first.txt. Okay, and then we want to make another one called second.txt. There we go. So now we got 2 new files, first and second. And so in the first one, we're going to say, let me get some dummy text real quick. Hold on. If you worked with web development before, you might be familiar with lorem ipsum, which is basically just some dummy text that you can put just for testing purposes. So that's what we're going to grab right now. There we go. So we're going to put that in here, and it should print all of that into the second file here. Okay, so yeah, we need to target it now by doing first.txt. And now we want to do fout is equal to new file output stream second.txt. So now, if this works correctly, we should establish 2 streams. One is an input stream for a file for first, and then we have a file output stream for the second file. Okay, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So let's think about how we want to do this operation. Let's basically, let's think. Okay, we can do this actually really simply. All we got to do is grab the input first. That's our first task. So we can just put that into a byte array. So let's make a new byte array here. Byte array data is equal to fn.readAllBytes, and then now we could simply do fout.write, and then we could just plug in the byte array just like that. Easy peasy. And that should do it. That's all we got to do pretty much. And let's also catch these exceptions so we can, handle everything, of course. So EX, just like that. And let's try testing this out. Of course, we still need to add the close things, but those aren't exactly needed, but it should work. So let's try going to here now. Everything is still the same, but if we go into second now, we can see that all of the stuff from first is now in second. So if we delete everything from first, we should be able to run this again, and second should also be empty maybe. There we go, so now it's empty, so it's just gonna copy everything perfectly. So copy this into the second file. So if we run this, that's exactly what it should do. So as we open up the second file, we can see that it's exactly what we put in here is now in here. Very, very simple concept. All we're doing is gathering input from an input stream, storing that input, and then putting it into an output stream, okay? So yeah, let's also close these streams when we're done, just to develop the good practice. So finally, try if fin.equals null, then fin.close. If out.equals, not equals to null. There we go, f out. Then we have to do f out close. I can't type. Oh my gosh. Okay, there we go. So we got that now. And then we want to handle this. So IO exception, EX, and then S out EX, just like that. Okay, so that's going to work the exact same, of course. So if we run this, nothing else is going to change. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I want to show you for this episode. That's all I pretty much have to show you. There's, of course, some other methods and little things we could do, but those are the most important ones. So hopefully you get all these concepts. They're very simple. We're just making input streams and output streams, except that they're file output streams and file input streams, okay? So if you have any questions about what I showed today, you can ask in the comment section below, or you can join our Discord server. And yeah, so the link for that is in the description, by the way. And you can ask questions there, leave suggestions, whatever you want to do, just join that. And then all of the code for today's episode is going to be in the description below, so you can check it out and then bookmark it for future reference in case you forget how to do any of the file input streams or output streams, okay? Also, if you want to support this channel and help me make more high quality videos, then you can go ahead and become a member of this channel by clicking the join button below this video, and you can join this channel as a member for $1, $5, or $10 a month, and you can cancel at any time if you want to. So that's about it. So if you like this video, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe, and peace.